Let's solve this IELTS academic reading passage from Cambridge IELTS Book 20. The title of the passage is Manatees. The first sentence tells us that manatees are aquatic mammals. In simple words, they're animals that live in water. We'll solve the questions together. For each question, read it, pause and try to find the answer. After that, I'll explain where the answer comes from in the passage and why it is correct. Here's the first question. Pause here and try to find the answer. Let's check. The heading is Manatees. The subheading is Appearance. So we are looking for how manatees look. Dugongs and other words from the question appear in paragraph 1. The question says manatees and dugongs look similar, but something is different. The shape of this something is different. So we have to find what is not the same between dugongs and manatees because the shape is different. In the paragraph, we ignore the first sentences about animals and groups and the last sentence about species. We focus on the part that compares manatees and dugongs. Words like however and whereas mean but, so they show a difference. First, it says that dugongs and manatees look alike or look similar. The word shape is mentioned, but it says similar shape, not different shape. In the second sentence, the word shape or different is not mentioned, but it says manatee has a rounded tail. But dugongs, this means dugong's tail is fluked, a different shape of the tail. So even if you don't know the meaning of fluked, you can understand from context that it should be a shape. So manatee has rounded tail, dugong's tail is fluked, they have differently shaped tails. The answer to question 1 is tail. Here are meanings of each sentence from paragraph 1. Pause here if you want to understand it in detail. Questions 2 and 3 are under the same subheading, movement. Pause here and try to find the answers. Let's check. Question 1 came from paragraph 1. The words from these questions appear in paragraph 2, so this is where we look. The heading is manatees, the subheading is movement. Then there are 3 points. The first point has no blank. We identify the keywords from each point to find out tentative location of each question. The first sentence in the paragraph is connected to the first point, neck bones. And towards the end, we have words from the third point. So we focus on the middle of the paragraph. Question 2 is about what manatees use to help turn their bodies so that they can look sideways. So we are looking for something that helps in turning, most probably a body part. In paragraph 2, the second sentence mentions side to side, which looks similar to sideways. But that sentence starts with this short neck. So it is talking about the neck. That means this sentence is connected to the first point about neck bones, not to question 2. The next sentence explains what manatees do instead. It says, to see something on the left or right, a manatee must turn its entire body, steering with its flippers. The word steer means to control direction, like a steering wheel of a car, and left or right means sideways. So, to look sideways, manatees turn their bodies, and they do this using their flippers. The answer to question 2 is flippers. One small but important point here. In the question, the word before the blank is there, but in the passage, it is its. That does not mean the answer is wrong. In reading passages, singular and plural often change. Manatees in general becomes a manatee in the passage. You can use this in your writings as well. Look at these examples on screen. Instead of writing children and their, we can write a child, his or her. Similarly, when writing about drivers in general, we can write a driver. The meaning stays the same. So here, its flippers matches their flippers. The answer to question 3 comes after the answer to question 2. And the last sentences talk about skin and vibrations. In question 3, the phrase by means of means by using something. So we are looking for something that is on the skin of the manatees, and they use this something to feel vibrations in the water. In the passage, we first read that manatees have thick and wrinkled skin. But that sentence does not explain how they feel vibrations. In the next sentence, they means manatees. Manatees have hairs covering their bodies, and these hairs help them sense vibrations in water. So, even though the word skin is not repeated here, hairs on the bodies are on the skin. That means manatees feel vibrations by means of hairs. The answer to question 3 is hairs. Here are meanings of each sentence from paragraph 2. Pause here if you want to understand it in detail. Questions 4 and 5 are under the same subheading, feeding. Pause here and try to find the answers. Let's check. The answer to question 3 came from paragraph 2. Paragraphs 3 and 4 talk about diet and food. So this is where we look for questions 4 and 5. Question 4 says eat mainly aquatic vegetation such as. Aquatic means water, vegetation means plants. So the main thing manatees eat is water plants. Such as tells us that we are looking for an example of or a name of a water plant. In paragraph 3, we read sea grasses and other marine plants make up most of a manatee's diet. Marine means sea, so marine plants are aquatic plants. Sea grasses are a type of marine plant. The answer to question 4 is sea grasses. Question 5 says grasp and pull up plants with their blank. Grasp means to hold tightly. So we are looking for what manatees use to hold and pull up plants. We are most probably looking for a body part. In paragraph 4, we read instead of using incisors to grasp their food, manatees have lips which function like a pair of hands. This tells us two things. First, manatees do not use incisors. Second, they use their lips. Function like a pair of hands means the lips work like hands. And tear food away from the seafloor means pull up plants. This sentence mentions several body parts, so it's important to read it carefully. The answer to question 5 is lips. Here are meanings of each sentence from paragraph 3, and here are meanings of paragraph 4. Pause here if you want to understand them in detail. Here's question 6. Pause here and try to find the answer. Let's check. The subheading is breathing. The first point has no blank, but the numbers 2 to 4 minutes and 15 to 20 are mentioned. These help us locate the paragraph. The answer to question 6 comes after this information, so we look in the last few sentences of paragraph 5. The question gives us three ideas. Something in the body is controlled or regulated. This is done using the diaphragm, and air or gas is stored inside the body. So now we know we are looking for something in the bodies that is regulated or controlled. In the paragraph, we read Manatees use their muscular diaphragm and breathing to adjust their buoyancy. The question says store air internally. The paragraph says store gas in the large intestine. So, what they regulate or control or adjust is the buoyancy or how they float in water. Even if you don't know every word, you can still get the answer by matching the other information. Buoyancy means the ability to float. This is something you may have studied in basic physics. It explains why boats or ships float instead of sinking. So, here manatees use breathing and their diaphragm to control how they float in water. The answer to question 6 is buoyancy. Here are meanings of each sentence from paragraph 5. Pause here if you want to understand it in detail. Here are all the answers to the gap fill questions along with where they appear in the passage. Before we move on, let's quickly look at some important tips for gap fill questions. The most important thing is that the answers are usually in the same order as the information in the text. It is also important to identify keywords in the questions to help you find the location. Sometimes these are capitalized words, but sometimes simple words like vibrations and diaphragm can help as well. Keep these points in mind. And now, let's move on to the next set of questions, true, false, not given. Here's question 7. Pause here and try to find the answer. Let's check. The phrase West Indian manatees appears several times in the passage. What helps locate the paragraph quickly is the next question, which mentions Florida. Florida manatees are discussed in paragraph 6, so this is the first place we look. The question says a variety of different aquatic habitats. Aquatic means water, habitat means the natural place where an animal lives. So the question is saying that West Indian manatees live in different types of water environments. In paragraph 6, we read that West Indian manatees move between freshwater and saltwater. The passage then gives examples: mangroves, coral reefs, rivers, lakes, and lagoons. These are clearly different aquatic habitats. So the information in the passage matches the statement. The answer to question 7 is true. Here's question 8. Pause here and try to find the answer. Let's check. This statement is making a comparison. It talks about three things: the water temperature where the Florida manatee lives, the water temperature where the Antillean manatee lives, and it says the Florida manatees live in warmer water than the Antillean manatees. That is, the temperature of the water is more. The previous question was answered from the first part of paragraph 6, so we continue looking in the same paragraph. I've listed the information in this part of the paragraph in points. It first tells us where the Antillean manatee lives. Then it tells us where the Florida manatee lives. After that, temperature is mentioned, but only in one situation. When the water temperature drops below 20 degrees, the Florida manatee looks for warmer water. This does not tell us the usual water temperature where Florida manatee lives. There is no information at all about the water temperature where Antillean manatee lives. Because the temperatures of both habitats are not given, we cannot compare them. So, this information is not given in the passage. The answer to question 8 is not given. Here are meanings of each sentence from paragraph 6. Pause here if you want to understand it in detail. Here's question 9. Pause and try to find the answer. Let's check. The two capitalized words, Mauritania and Angola, appear together only in paragraph 7. So, this is where we look. The key phrase in the question is limited to. Limited to means only found in and not beyond that. The question says that African manatee is only in coastal waters between these two countries. In paragraph 7, the first sentence says the African manatee is found in the sea along the west coast of Africa from Mauritania to Angola. This part matches the question. But the next sentence says the species also makes use of rivers and is also there in landlocked countries, that is, countries with no coast. The species here refers to the African manatee. African manatee is also there in rivers and in some landlocked countries. This part of the question is false. So the answer to question 9 is false. Here are meanings of each sentence from paragraph 7. Pause here if you want to understand in detail. Here's question 10. Pause and try to find the answer. Let's check. Amazonian manatees are mentioned in several parts of the passage. The previous question was answered from paragraph 7, so the answer must come after that. Amazonian manatees are mentioned in paragraphs 8 and 9. The question also mentions mid 20th century, which points us to paragraph 9. Extent means how much. The 20th century is from 1901 to 2000, and the mid 20th century is approximately from 1940s to 1960s. The question says there was loss of Amazonian manatees in the mid 20th century. That is, around this time, Amazonian manatees died. The question also says the loss was revealed many years later. Revealed means shown. So, the question is saying that we found out about this loss many years after the mid 20th century. Paragraph 9 says 140,000 Amazonian manatees were killed between 1935 and 1954. So, the first part of the question is correct. There was a loss in the mid 20th century. But there is no mention of when we found out about this loss. Was it at the same time or much later? This part is not given in the passage. The next sentence in the paragraph mentions recent years, but this is connected to African manatees, not to Amazonian manatees. So the second part of the question is not mentioned. The answer to question 10 is not given. Here are meanings of each sentence from paragraph 8, and here are the meanings of paragraph 9. Pause here if you want to understand them in detail. Here's question 11. Pause and try to find the answer. Let's check. We are at the last paragraph. West Indian manatees are mentioned before, but for true false not given questions, the answers follow the order of the passage. The answer to the previous question was in paragraph 9. This has to be from paragraph 10. The question talks about a prediction about the future. A decade is 10 years. Coming decades is the decades of the future. So the question means that the number of West Indian manatees will fall in the future. Paragraph 10 says the two subspecies of West Indian manatee are listed as endangered, that is, they are at a risk of disappearing. Subspecies means two types of West Indian manatee. It then says both are expected to undergo a decline. Both means both subspecies of the West Indian manatee. This clearly matches the statement. The answer to question 11 is true. Here's question 12. Pause and try to find the answer. Let's check. The information is in the same paragraph as the previous question. Keywords like entanglement, plastic consumption, and the years 2009 to 2020 help us confirm the location. Entanglement means to be tied or caught up in something. The question says there was a risk to manatees from two things: entanglement and plastic consumption. It also says that this risk increased a lot between 2009 and 2020. The paragraph says there was a study of 1800 cases. The study was about entanglement and plastic consumption. Out of these, 700 cases were of manatees. This shows there was a risk during this time. The risk was because of entanglement and plastic consumption. But the paragraph does not compare this period with any other period. It does not say the risk was lower before or that it increased over time. So the idea of an increase is not mentioned. This part of the question is not given. The answer to question 12 is not given. Here's question 13. Pause here and try to find the answer. Let's check. We are at the end of the passage. Keywords like Florida and boat strikes appear here. So this is the correct paragraph. Legislation means a law. In place means that the law is already there. So the question says that there is already a law in Florida to reduce boat strikes on manatees. The paragraph first says that the main cause for the death of Florida manatees is boat strikes. Then it says that in some parts of Florida, there is a law to limit or to control boat speeds. Limiting boat speeds gives manatees time to respond and avoid being hit. So there is a law now. It is already in place. It aims to reduce boat strikes. Both parts of the question match the passage. The answer to question 13 is true. Here are meanings of each sentence from paragraph 10. Pause here if you want to understand it in detail. Here are all the true false not given answers along with where they appear in the passage. And here is a step-by-step strategy you can use for true false not given answers. One important thing to remember is that the questions follow the same order as the information in the text. We saw this clearly in the questions we just solved. For each question, we use keywords from the question to find the tentative location in the passage. In these questions, many of those words are capitalized, which made scanning easier. With this, we have completed all the questions for Test 2, Passage 1. We'll continue solving the rest of this test in the future videos. Hope this helped you. Bye for now. All the very best.